welcome back to our channel SACAP Talks, the channel where we speak about widespread psychological issues in and around the South African community. Today we will be speaking about the LGBTQI+ community, as well as discrimination against homosexual, bisexual and gender non-conforming people. So,
if you're new here,
I'm Naftali.
I'm Chayton.
I'm Tyler.
I'm Amber. And don't forget to like and subscribe and give us a young follow on Instagram.
So Tyler, what is the LGBTQI+ community?
The LGBTQI+ community is a community of people who are lesbian, or who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning, intersex, asexual, aromantic. It's kind of like a safe place for them.
Right, so it's a community where they all, it's the movement, they can voice their opinion in there and everything.
Yeah.
Fine. So does anyone here have any experience with anyone who's part of the community or anything happening?
I mean, I've had experience, but I mean, not with anyone.
Fine. So you haven't, have you had
So I've grown up with my godparents, my godfathers, who are a couple and they're gay. And I mean, for me, I've grown up as it being a normal thing. Whereas like my mom, she would see people in the streets holding hands and they're same sex, or they've just transitioned, or they identify as queer or questioning. And for them, at that point in time, like during the 50s and 60s, it was like a taboo subject. People had to hide who they really are.
It was illegal to be.
And it was illegal, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, anyone else? So I mean, we looked at statistics now, and there's been very little research into the LGBTQI+ community in South Africa. Actually, I mean, one of the biggest and most official ones come from 2015-2016. There's a report called Progressive Prudes, which was a survey, a study that aimed to identify the attitudes towards homosexuality and gender non-conformity in South Africa. It showed some interesting stats. It said at that time it was over 750,000 adult men and women across all population groups and living in both rural and urban areas and across all age groups identified themselves as homosexual, bisexual or gender non-conforming. Now that's massive, right? If we're taking that, there's a massive amount of people and there's a massive amount. So the question is, why is there not more advocacy against the discrimination against it, right? If there's cases happening in the religion, in the situations, I mean, look at this, 27 or more % of the population in South Africa, that's 1 in 4 South Africans, state that they have a friend or relative who identifies as part of this LGBTQI+ community. And then
going back to a question about why, I think a lot of people are scared to talk about it. Like, even though it's widely more accepted nowadays than it was, I think still speaking about it like it is normal, which it is, but I mean, being able to speak like we're having a conversation now about it almost gets frowned upon in the sense that there's still a huge generation of people who do not agree with it at all. So I think that's why there's not really many statistics and reports.
I read an article about how some people might not be comfortable talking about it because they don't want to accept it within themselves, and they don't want to be a part of the community because of the discrimination that the community receives, and if they know themselves that they are a part of it, staying in the closet is safe for them.
I also think, I lost my train of thought for a second. I think also it's like they always don't want to be a burden because they know if they speak about who they are just in general, they almost feel like, well, if I say this, then it's just going to cause an issue. It's just like they're going to be a burden on someone because they are who they are.
yeah, I mean, that's quite interesting because in this report, the report had said that 51% of South Africans are okay with, they do believe that homosexual, anyone in the LGBTQI+ community should have the same human rights as others. But then you come onto the stat that says 72% of the population, however, feels that the same-sex sexual activity is morally wrong. So you've got this, whereas half the population does think that it's okay and they should be allowed, they're at the same time, a lot of those people are also saying that they shouldn't act upon it, which fits into the thing. So people are having a bit of an internal conflict in a way going on. And it's just, there's a need, there's a lot of discrimination. I mean, we've got reports here of cases of discrimination and everything happening against people in this community. A report in 2016 called The Hate Crimes Against Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual and Transgender People in South Africa was released. It was a study of over 2,100 people. And among one of the most concerning findings there was that most people who identify themselves as part of one of these parts of the LGBTQI plus community said that they experienced discrimination from a young age. Right? It was 56% of the people in the study, aged 24 years or younger, said they'd experienced discrimination at school. Now that's quite intense, right? Because if it's starting
I think
then,
parents have a large role to play in that. I mean, if I think of my mom and like her sister, so her sister's quite a few years younger than what she is. It just still shows that even though she's part of a completely different generation to my mom, she still doesn't have that acceptance that we have. Because if we like look into the future a little bit, if our child is gay, straight, lesbian, bi, whatever they want to be, we're not going to shun them, we're not going to make them feel bad at home because they are who they are. And I feel like it's the parents that install these thoughts into the children's heads, and it's like, well, if you know someone like that, then
that's what I was just gonna say. As well as trying to help our children feel comfortable with themselves and their identities, also not to kind of impart this belief that you should judge someone else for their beliefs and their identity.
I think what matters there is that you have the right to be who you are.
Yeah.
I don't think no matter what anyone says, you are you.
Yeah,
and you were made like
You do
for this
you,
world.
boo.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, even though there's still a large amount of discrimination in South Africa, we do have to give South Africa their due, because within the whole African continent, South Africa is the only country that has legalized basically all of these rights, even though it might not be as accepting within the huge continent. South Africa is the only ones that are actually quite accepting of the LGBTQ.
And going back to like the way parents parent their children, there was a study done in 2016 about the different provinces and how many students within these different provinces within the schools experience discrimination, and it was shocking. So in KwaZulu-Natal, more than 79% of students experience discrimination at school because of their sexuality and because of who they choose to identify as, and as well as in the Eastern Cape 70% and in the Western Cape 68% of the youth experience discrimination from their peers. So it's definitely, it's not a taboo subject anymore, but it's serious enough for parents, especially the old generation parents who are having children later, to really kind of take out their emotion and make it something that's more liberal and okay.
And I think that goes with the fact that it says here that 88% of people do not report their cases of discrimination to the police. Now, this is very likely going off of the fact that they don't feel comfortable enough saying to them. They feel like they're going to actually be the ones sort of targeted here if they were to report these problems. But also, I mean, we have this stat here which is really quite shocking. It says 41% of the 2,100 people surveyed in the study said they knew someone who had been murdered due to their sexual orientation or sexual identity. That's very intense. This is proper hate violence, discriminatory violence that really needs to be put a stop in South Africa, because I mean, there's no ways the country can move forward and become this rainbow nation if they're not even accepting of not just the different races and cultures and everything, they actually have to accept the different people's, what they identify as, who they are.
Yeah.
So we've also got, we were able to find out the types of discrimination that these victims suffered. 7% of the survey said they had been punched, hit, kicked or beaten due to their discrimination. Another 7% they said they experienced violence from a family member for being part of this community, which is very, because you expect your family is supposed to be your social support system, the people you can always go to. Like if this
My
and
school, it's meant to be a safe.
I mean, yeah, and 6% had been raped or sexually abused for this. Now, one interesting thing is if you're not feeling safe, which we're saying experience from a family member. I have a story about this where a kid, someone who was in my friend group, he came out of and said he identified in the community recently, but he only said it to his friends, and he committed suicide. He wrote a whole note and everything explaining in his suicide letter that he loves his family, whatever, but he feels that they will not accept him for who he is, and that feels like he doesn't have a place in the world, and that he's scared of how people treat him. And so besides for his close few friends who he actually put this out with, he was on a trip overseas and he jumped off a 4-story building. So this kid, I mean, you can see here if people are not even feeling like they can at home feel, I mean, he said his parents, he wasn't sure how his parents would react. If you cannot feel like your parents are going to accept you, then who is going to accept you in the world? I mean, that goes with the whole thing, is that this whole thing of being under this devastation of stigma, being marginalized, like verbal abuse and violence, is actually really bad, because the study shows, a 2017 study showed that sexual minority youth in the United States, so we're not talking about South Africa here, but it's going to relate to all the way around, is that these LGBTQI plus people, youth, are more likely to consider, plan or attempt suicide. They're at 40% of the people in the study, compared to the heterosexual people who were surveyed. That's at 15%. So that's a huge amount, huge discrepancy between it, and it's definitely playing a big factor in the community, in the problems.
And sadly, a lot of discrimination also comes from those who should know better. So relating back to schools or even universities, there's been reports that show that the lecturers or the teachers are the ones that make the students feel like outcasts when being put into groups because of their sexuality and because of who they choose to identify as. And that's just like horrendous. That shouldn't be happening. As a teacher, teaching a subject, no matter what the subject is, you should have an open mind to race, culture, religion, sexuality.
It should be a safe zone where the person doesn't feel targeted or attacked. 100%. And I mean, this goes on to then the ways for people to start preventing this discrimination happening, because as I said, very important for us to try fix and prevent these problems and get rid of the discrimination, that these people can feel that they're part of the South African nation, so we can move forward as one nation, one heart, that whole thing, South African proud. This is, so you've got here, like, one way really that people should try and help is that they shouldn't allow people, even if it's not to or not about a person part of the community, you should not let these sexual slurs be allowed to happen, such as if you're at a table with someone and someone says something,
don't let it slide.
Don't let it slide. Don't let it.
It starts with your conversations at home and with your friends within your social groups.
100%. I mean,
And if there's an adult that you trust, confide in them. If there's a teacher that you trust that's open-minded, confide in them. If you're receiving like bullying at school, don't give them the attention that they want by reacting and showing emotion. Go to someone that you trust and actually do something about it.
Yeah.
Because bullies ultimately want that reaction. They feed off it.
Yeah.
and I think we have to sort of advocate for more rights and protection for these communities, right? I mean, it's good enough saying they're part of it and saying it's not, but until they get everything equal and then be allowed to do what they want, because they're in this world, who are we to say that we have control over what they do? I think we have to advocate for legal change in these problems and get actual legislative changes happening.
Because
I think the thing is, our legal system does advocate for the LGBTQI plus community, but it's the people that, it's the people that don't necessarily, like the law's in place, but if you're not actually going to
society
implicate it and make sure that even though it is a law and it is a right, I mean, there are protection rights, there are gay and lesbian protection rights, but the problem is you have this right, but how is it being implicated? If I had to walk into a police station tomorrow and say, listen, my friend who's part of the LGBTQIA plus community is currently being beaten up in the corner, I can guarantee you majority of them would laugh.
Well, that's right.
Even though it's their right to be protected.
That's why we're saying 88. That's where that 88% of like people who have experienced discrimination have not actually reported in cases because they know nothing's going to happen yet. There actually has to be set like proper laws and ethical stuff that if you do this, there's actual punishments.
And just trying to reach people on that human level of your personal belief system, trying to speak to more people and trying to raise awareness for it is it's a big thing, because even though, as Jason said, there are these laws in place, again, it comes down to like cultural beliefs, religious beliefs, and personal beliefs. You know, so at the end of the day, even though there is this law, people are going to do what they think is right in their heads, or going to ignore what they think is wrong. You know,
I think if the laws were so strict and put in place before it was accepted, the law should be as strict and put in place now. Because I have a little map.
We'll see.
And you can see that there's like, I don't know what country that is. What is that?
Ethiopia.
There's Ethiopia. Anyway, there's 2 and a bit. No, Egypt's not there. Anyway, there's 2 and a bit countries, still in Africa, that a death sentence may be carried out on someone who is part of the LGBTQI plus community. And you can see the dark pink is basically where you have up to a 30-year prison sentence. The light pink is 14-year prison sentence, and then the grey is all legal.
Guys, so has there been any progress
for sure.
within the community?
For sure. I mean, there's been pride movements all over the world. Recently on Saturday, we just had Pride. You went to Pride.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. Not that I'm part of the community, but I support the community.
And this was the one in Santon?
Yeah, it was like throughout Santon. There was a BMW car painted with like the Pride colours. There was signs saying "Be kind," like the type.
And it was their 30th anniversary celebrating Pride, because Pride,
Yeah,
the whole march started in the 1990s.
Yeah, I remember correctly.
Here in South Africa or?
No, here in South Africa. It was South
yeah.
Africa's 30th anniversary for doing the actual Pride.
Well, that's good. I mean, there's definitely progress being made then, slowly, and it will take time.
I would say it's quite a bit of progress. I mean, if people are still against it, but I mean, if they really, really didn't enjoy it, I'm pretty sure they would have tried to put a stop to this parade 50 million times before. Maybe they have, I just didn't see anything on it. But I mean, the fact that has gone on for 30 years since.
That's
a lot.
big.
Yeah.
It's people are starting to accept more. It's a big thing.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I'm excited.
And that's not only like locally, I mean globally as well. For example,
There's Pride marches
Elizabeth, the
everywhere.
Senator of Massachusetts, has like put in a bill, and if it's approved by the Constitution or the Congress, then the LGBTQI plus community in Massachusetts itself will have protection.
That's massive. That's
So-
big progress in the world where 10 years ago it was.
Slowly, and not
But it's
the rate
happening.
that we wish it
But
was.
it's happening.
but it's happening, and it's a big
And we
movement
have to
that's
look at
supporting
that.
it.
Yeah,
Regardless
and I
of the negative aspects of it, we have to look at the change that is
Yeah.
being made.
Definitely.
I mean, in the meantime,
I
just
saw a nice statement. It says, debuting a new flag, which is inspired by the flags of all 54 countries in Africa. Pride makes a bold new statement. There are no borders here. Pride is proudly African and authentically you.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, just going back to if anyone is experiencing any discrimination when they're in the community, anyone in school, because there's so much discrimination at school out there, just know that it will get better. School's temporary, it goes over. College temporary, life will get better. So don't think that life's over. And also try reach out to your local LGBTQI+ organizations. They can offer you advice or help, and essentially they can make you feel more welcome. A lot of the time these people just don't feel welcome enough.
And also don't feel shy to report teachers or family members or friends to the South African Rights Commission.
Yeah.
If you don't, you always think, what if?
Exactly.
Yeah. What if I reported it then it might have made a difference?
Yeah.
So I mean,
And not only to
start
you,
with
to
it.
other people in the community as well, that person could be affecting. And don't lose sight of your goals, your passions, just because people are ignorant and their beliefs get in the way and cloud their judgment.
And that's all we have time for today, folks. So thank you for watching. Don't remember to like and subscribe.
Leave a comment.
Leave a comment. Chayton will be reading them all.
Wow.
And yeah, see you next week.